Chapter 5, The Family Lie. Lena could barely breathe. The video had shaken her to her core. Not just Mark's warning about Daniel, but the shadowy figure in the background. A figure that looked impossibly familiar. She grabbed an old family photo album from the bookshelf, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the pages. Mark and Daniel as kids, family gatherings, Christmas mornings. Then she found a photo she hadn't looked at in years. 3 boys, Mark, Daniel, and Jason. Jason, the older brother who had died years ago in a car accident. But the man in Mark's video, the shadow in the background, looked exactly like Jason. Lena felt like the ground had tilted beneath her. This wasn't just about Mark's secrets anymore. This was about his family's lies. She had to talk to Daniel. Daniel's house. Midnight. Lena banged on Daniel's door, the rage in her chest pushing past the fear in her gut. He opened the door, bleary-eyed, but when he saw the look on her face, he immediately stiffened. "I saw the video," she said, stepping inside. "Mark warned me about you." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Lena, who is Rachel?" she interrupted. "Why did Mark send her money?" Daniel exhaled, running a hand down his face. She was helping him disappear. Mark wanted out. Out of what? Daniel hesitated. The money Mark had wasn't his. He was laundering it for dangerous people, and when he tried to walk away, they put a target on his back. Lena's stomach turned. "So what, you just let him die?" Daniel's eyes flashed with something raw. "No, I tried to stop it." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. But Lena, you don't understand. Jason is alive." Lena felt her whole world spin. "I saw him," Daniel continued, his voice low and urgent. "I don't know how, I don't know why, but he's back. And if he was with Mark that night..." A sudden crash shattered the air. The sound of glass breaking. Daniel grabbed Lena and yanked her down as a gunshot tore through the window. Lena screamed, covering her head as shards of glass rained down. Footsteps outside. Someone was running. Daniel scrambled to his feet, grabbed a gun from a drawer, and bolted out the door. Lena's heart pounded as she gasped for air, and then, in the eerie silence that followed, she saw something on the floor. A burnt photo that had been dropped near the shattered window. She picked it up, turning it over. It was old, faded, but she could still make out the faces. Mark, Daniel, and Jason. But something was off. Jason's face had been crossed out, and beneath it, scrawled in messy ink, was a chilling message. He was never supposed to come back. Chapter 6, The Dead Man Returns. Lena's hands trembled as she stared at the burnt photo. Jason was alive. Mark had been terrified of him, and someone dangerous wanted to make sure Jason stayed dead. Daniel had already sprinted outside, gun in hand, chasing after whoever had shot at them. But Lena stayed frozen, her mind racing. She needed answers. Now, her fingers tightened around the burnt photo, and before she could stop herself, she grabbed her car keys and sped off, to the only place that made sense. An abandoned cabin, 40 minutes outside the city. Daniel had told her once about their old family cabin, the place he used to disappear to when he wanted to be alone. If Jason was really back, if he was the shadow in Mark's video, this was where he'd be. The road was dark and winding, her headlights barely cutting through the thick fog. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Then, suddenly, a figure stepped into the road. Lena slammed the brakes, tires screeched. The car skidded, stopping inches away from the man standing directly in her headlights. Her breath caught in her throat. It was him. Jason, a man who was supposed to be dead. He was thinner than she remembered from the old family photos, his face more hollow, his hair shaggy and unkempt. But it was him. Lena threw the car into park and jumped out. "Jason," she gasped. "You're alive." Jason took a step toward her, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't have come here, Lena." Her voice broke. "You were in Mark's video. What happened to him? Why did he say not to trust Daniel?" Jason's jaw tightened. He exhaled slowly, his eyes dark with something unreadable. "Because Daniel's the reason Mark is dead." Lena's stomach dropped. "No," she shook her head. "That can't be true. Daniel, he tried to protect me. Jason took another step forward. "Daniel was working with them, Lena. The people Mark was running from. He made a deal to save himself. Mark was supposed to disappear, but they killed him instead." Lena felt sick. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But Jason wasn't done. His eyes flickered past her toward the road. "We need to go. Now." "Go?" Lena whispered. "Go where?" Jason tensed. "They followed you. Before she could process his words, headlights appeared in the distance. Fast, coming straight for them. Jason grabbed her arm. Run! Chapter 7, The Final Betrayal. Lena ran. Her breath came in ragged gasps as Jason pulled her through the dense trees, the sound of roaring engines and crunching gravel behind them. Whoever was coming wasn't here to talk. A single gunshot rang out. Close. Too close. Jason yanked her down behind an old fallen log. Stay low, he whispered. Lena's mind was spinning. Mark was dead. Daniel had betrayed him, Jason was alive, and now they were being hunted. Footsteps crunched in the darkness. Then a voice. You can come out now. Lena's blood ran cold. Daniel. Jason tensed beside her. He mouthed, don't move. But Lena couldn't stop herself. She rose slowly, locking eyes with the man she once trusted. Daniel stood a few feet away, gun in hand. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned with something dangerous. You lied to me, Lena whispered. Daniel let out a short, humorless laugh. I told you Mark had secrets. I just left a few out. Lena's stomach churned. You set him up. Daniel tilted his head. I gave him a choice. He could have walked away, but he got greedy, and you know how that ends. Jason stepped forward. You killed your own brother. Daniel's face darkened. No, I cleaned up his mess. Lena's heart ached with fury. He trusted you. Daniel's grip on the gun tightened, and I trusted him. But trust means nothing when it's your life or theirs. Jason lunged. A shot fired. Lena screamed as Jason hit the ground. Blood. Too much blood. Jason groaned, clutching his side. Lena dropped to her knees, pressing her hands to the wound, desperate to stop the bleeding. Stay with me, Jason, Daniel sighed. You weren't supposed to find him, Lena. This could have been easier. He lifted the gun again, this time aimed at her. Her pulse thundered. She was going to die. Then another gunshot. But it wasn't from Daniel. Daniel's body jerked, his face twisting in shock as blood bloomed across his chest. He stumbled back. Dead. Lena turned, shaking, to see Rachel standing behind them, gun still smoking in her hand. Rachel's face was pale, eyes wide. I knew he'd come after you, she whispered. Lena couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Jason groaned beside her, still alive but barely conscious. Rachel knelt, pressing a hand to Jason's wound. We need to go, before they send someone else. Lena looked down at Daniel's lifeless body. Her husband was dead, her brother-in-law had betrayed her, and now her entire life was a lie. Tears burned her eyes as she whispered, What do we do now? Rachel exhaled shakily. Now. She met Lena's gaze. Now we disappear. Wow, what a journey. From shocking betrayals to heart-stopping twists, Lena's story has been one wild ride. But as with all great tales, sometimes the truth leaves us with more questions than answers. If you enjoyed the suspense, mystery, and all the jaw-dropping moments, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a twist in our next story. Leave a comment below and let us know what you thought of the ending. Did you see the final betrayal coming? Or did it leave you speechless, just like it did us? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay curious, stay mysterious, and keep unraveling the truth.